So, Francis, take it away there.
Okay, thanks, Matthew, and welcome everyone. I think this class is. I've been reading Nicholas Culpepper for years and years, 10, 12, 15 years, something like that. So this class has been a long time in the making, and it's really just a kind of introduction. I was saying a bit before the class, I hope to kind of get some kind of party going where people get interested in reading and we can all have kind of an open forum, asking questions and sharing experiences and discovering long forgotten remedies and things like that. Wouldn't that be great? Um, and I wanted to, there's two classes, so we have plenty of time for questions and herbs and discussions. So we're just kind of, I'm going to throw out a bunch of information out here tonight and we'll kind of see how it goes. And in the second class, we'll throw out more information and we can also kind of revisit what we talked about tonight because it's this is 17th century stuff. It's kind of old. It was a different world, a very different world from the one we live in. Molecules didn't exist as I wrote in the introduction. So it really was a different world. People didn't think in terms of bacteria and viruses when they were sick and ill. They thought in terms of humors, which are liquids. Uh, it's really a different kind of mindset, a different kind of brain. And people didn't have indoor heating like we do today and electricity and hot showers. So they were constantly fighting the weather, the seasons, the elements, bugs, scorpions, things like that. So it takes a while to, that's why you have to read this text. You have to imagine you're there and you have to kind of imagine how that world was. Otherwise, you miss out. You try to read it with a modern mind, and it doesn't work so well. You start thinking, oh, this is not so useful. So if you want to figure out how useful this stuff is, you have to imagine yourself in that time period and
Right.
even
I
read
want to
about
say,
it. Yeah.
and just to say, this was not only just a long time ago, but this was a really unusual time period within a different
Yeah.
time period because this was during the English Civil War, and the censorship had broken down so that Culpepper could infringe on the copyrights of the physicians and tweak his nose at him and insult him. And he died before the king was restored. Therefore, none of this ever came back to haunt
Right.
him. He was
Yeah.
badly wounded in the Battle of Naseby, where the king was defeated, and ultimately the king was executed. So, I mean, this was,
Yeah.
5% of the population of England died due to civil war, so of the citizens. So this was a terrifying time, actually, in many ways.
Right.
London was kind of ruled by, a bunch of crazy hippies. I mean, it's the way I look at it. Okay, so just to
Oh,
give background there. Yeah.
yeah. Crazy times. And in spite of that, it's so incredible that Culpepper not only translated text but wrote. So the major text you can easily find is the Complete Herbal and English Physician. The English Physician is a translation of a text, so it has a lot of interesting remedies and formulas, tons of them, hundreds. But the Complete Herbal is really Culpepper writing about his experience at the age of, gosh, like in his 30s. And that's really incredible in that time period. And while he was involved in Civil War and all that, to have put out that material because these are all local herbs and there's more than 100. So he knew so many local plants. That in itself is incredible. These are all plants in the local area around London. Um, I mean, how many people use like 200 plants around their immediate area? Not so many, right? We have our 30 to 70. Oh, I think Matt raised his hand there.
Yeah, he will say things like, and you'll find this along the road in a field on the way to Sand Hill and Kent or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, he'll really describe where it grows, what it looks like, and when it's not from his experience, he will cite the other authors, which is not that often, but he will cite other authors. So he's real good about his experience and other people's experiences. So I don't want to talk too much. Time is limited, and we have to talk about plants. And this course is especially about the language, especially the old words, which I was setting out to be a literature major before I got into herbal medicine. I'd done 2 years in Massachusetts in literature, so I just liked reading. That's part of why I really got into Nicholas Culpepper. It was something to read all the time. So. And I really enjoyed the Old English. My mother was a big fan of Old English literature as well. God, what's with us Frenchies reading Old English stuff? Yeah, she liked Chaucer and stuff like that.
Oh,
yeah. So I read Culpepper over and over, and it started to speak to me. Like I thought Culpepper was alive in the book talking, and I started seeing it as a kind of living tradition, because we're all looking for old teachers nowadays and kind of a oral transmission and something. And Culpepper really, just reading the book over and over, it's so poetic in parts that it kind of came alive to me, and it started coming alive to me in my practice when I was seeing clients. I could really hear the words, feel the words, and once in a while, I'm not a very esoteric herbalist at all. But once in a while, I'll actually call on Culpepper when I'm in a difficult case. I'm like, okay, man, I know you're not doing anything right now. Like you're dead. Can you just help me out here for a second? I will call on Culpepper. So I'm a bit esoteric, but not that much. Anyways, so I think everyone's gotten the handout, which is I've made just a quick word about this handout. It's not really a handout for this class. Like we're not gonna go through it. It's more of a repertory. And I made the kind of categories. They're words that come up again and again in Culpepper, and some of them I made into categories because I felt like they were not so much constitutional, but I felt like there are categories you can easily recognize in people with the naked eye without a microscope, and they're not about molecules. And so, and some of them are sort of constitutional, or they're sort of habitual. So like we have the colic as an example, which is just a cramping pain in the belly, around the belly button, or people who have IBS and cramps all the time. A lot of people just have that all the time. They're always cramped up. They're always cramped up. So it's not necessarily a constitution, but it's kind of a habit. So a lot of these categories, they're kind of habits. They're people who are often suffer from these main categories. So that's one way to use the repertory, is to kind of recognize that in a client and then kind of go through the plants in there and see which one might fit, or at least use it as a study guide to study the plants in a category and sort of see which ones might fit with clients and get to learn them better and better. And some are plants that we know well here in North America and in Europe, and some are a bit less used. And I'll start today by talking about one plant which I think is not very much in use.
Visit us at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism.com.